Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here, and so he thinks that he's not the Parker, but little does he know he is the Parker. That's a long story inside joke, but we have Parker Cox here. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, Austin. As always, I appreciate you, and I really appreciate you having me on. And I'll just say one thing, seeing that it's September 11th, thoughts with everyone who endured anything on that day.
1,000%. Prayers to everybody. Well, by the time this does come out, you might have started 7 more businesses, so we don't really understand. But what I want you to do is kind of share everybody with your story, and we'll kind of unpack it. What you do, where you got started. You start wherever you want to, and we'll go through.
Yeah, I'll try and be as not long-winded as possible. So I graduated high school relatively early, finished college relatively quickly, basically got a degree in history and classical studies. And, as you can tell, I'm a history professor. So I did exactly what you have to do when you have that degree and you don't go into the profession of being a professor. I went into sales. I had 0 communicable skills in any way. I got a job. I left. I'd lived in Santa Cruz my entire life, went to UCSC. I left and went to San Diego, basically moved down there on a whim. Within 3 days, I was employed at a company that did phone sales to realtors. We sold them cold calling, Facebook business pages, and websites, trying to generate leads for them. Found out pretty quickly I was really, really good at that. It's a 2-call close process, which is pretty common. So you do an open where you get somebody to talk to you and give you some info, and then you have to set an appointment to actually sell the product once you've figured out the pain points and generated interest. The company average was like an open took about 150 to 250 calls. I set a record for like 3 or 4 months. I would do 12 call to 18 call average. So cold calling random strangers, I'd have to make 12 calls, including voicemails, and I could get somebody to talk to me for 25 minutes about marketing. When I figured that out, I leaned in pretty heavily on sales, and that's kind of been the underlying theme so far in my professional career. Pretty quickly, I realized I'm not really going anywhere at this company, and I decided to move on. I'd met my then girlfriend, and a couple months later she was pregnant, and her aunt had recently started a property and casualty insurance agency, and so I joined as a 1099 focused on growth. We can go into detail on that, but I learned a ton, mostly by not being taught anything and having to self-teach. And over the course of 5 years, I grew us to the largest agency in San Diego insuring real estate investment. So we were insuring, 600 to 700 flips a year. We'd gotten up to insuring about 2,000 rental units. I kind of went deep into the real estate investing world. That was how I ended up meeting my business partner now for our property management company. After we'd been talking about a few projects, all of this, he had just started a property management company after working for his uncle, who owned a long-standing business. And 30-minute conversation, we decided to shake hands, go start a secondary office in the Bay Area. And we've worked together 70 hours a week for the last 6.5 years. So it's been pretty wild. I've taken almost 800 flights to Northern California. Now I'm in Boise, so back to San Diego. I traveled constantly during COVID. I'm one of those people, I think, that it's like I've become a good operator. I understand business. It's what I'm interested in. It's my hobby. Along the way, I've started a few other businesses, some with my wife, some with my business partner. And then very recently, we've kind of stabilized the property management business to the point that we're now launching a digital marketing agency and an international recruiting company that I'm pretty excited about.
It's all amazing stuff, but I think there's some things that I noticed, meaning that you got to something, right? And this is something I've worked against me my whole life. You master the cold calling, and then you look up and you go, is this it? You go into the casual thing, you crush it, and you go, is this it? And I think a lot of people get caught in they don't ever ask themselves that question. What makes you different? Why did you ask those tough two questions to start your own business?
You know, it's hard to say. I mean, I'm sure some of it has to do with some ADHD and just I'm the sort of person who I don't have any problem working a lot. I enjoy it. I open my computer on the weekends. I've got 4 kids. I do plenty of life stuff too. But you know, I remember thinking, so I started personal development right when I found out my then girlfriend was pregnant. And I remember that I kind of read a story, or it might have been on a podcast, but it was from one of the 2 founders of Home Depot. And he basically, it was like his daughter's graduation and something like that. And she told this story of how, wow, I didn't realize how big this was. You know, you were always there for me. You never missed a play, you never missed a soccer practice, whatever. And he was explaining this story, and I immediately kind of paused it or closed the book, and I wrote down, like, I want to have it all. And what I meant by that was, like, you hear about people who achieve massive success, but it ruins their marriage or they're terrible parents or anything else. And I knew very early on, I mean, I was probably 22 when that happened. Like, I want to do whatever it takes to have it all. And I think that when you have that sort of mentality, you hit somewhere on the road where it's like, this isn't enough. And I remember having a conversation with, I think, my dad around that same time. And I just said, like, why not me? If somebody else can make $100 million or $1 billion business, or, you know, help 1,000 people, whatever it is, why not me? I'm smart. I'm willing to work as hard as anyone else. Like, I have the background, you know, it's like, I can learn anything, I'll study. And I think having that mentality is where a lot of people struggle. We're really beaten down by society when our parents and our friends and our teachers tell us, like, oh, well, you have to stick to this box, right? It's like, why? Why not me? If somebody else can do it, why not me? That was kind of the core thesis that I developed along the way.
I tell my clients all the time, I said, there's only one thing that matters in this world. It's called more. More everything. More happiness, more love, more time with your kids, more freedom, more everything.
Yeah, and just more growth.
And the thing is that what I've realized, and I think, and I'm sure you're at a place at this point, right? You have 4 kids, you have a wife. I think a lot of guys, and I'm just talking about men, they say that it's for their family, when really it's for them. And the moment that they own it for them, they set themselves free. Because we apologize so much for what we need to be happy. You can't apologize for it.
Yeah, I think it's okay to make it your own ego. And it's funny because with the amount of travel, I mean, in the last 8 years, last 6 years, I've spent about a year and a half away from my family when you put it all together. Now, I've almost never missed weekends. I've coached my kids' soccer teams. I've done Boy Scouts. I'm still doing those things now. But the reality is that it's like, a lot of people have asked me, well, you know, hey, I mean, is this really the father you want to be? And what I'll say is this is like, you take it to the 2 extremes. It's like, I don't want to be a father that's never there, but then they have $100 million lifestyle while they're kids. But take it to the other extreme. I don't want to be the dad that's always there and we're living off food stamps. I'd rather set an example that shows I'm pursuing my dreams. I'm passionate about something and I'm willing to sacrifice for it. And it's like, whether or not they're learning that lesson, I'm not sure, but I'd prefer that lesson to, hey, being exclusively about other people is the only thing. It's like, no, this is about me, but by, waterfall and cascade effect. It's about them too, and about the futures that they need to set up for themselves. You know what I mean?
And when you go to property management, let's say that it's probably one of the least sexiest businesses on the planet. And a lot of people I've met, for lack of a better word, have been a little bit older, right? Maybe they want a little stability, right? The monotonous hospitality customer base of property management, not to mention with irrational investors who for the sole purpose of hiring you was so they could remove themselves from a situation, but yet some of them still can't remove themselves, if that makes sense. So,
Well put.
so you're catching it from both sides, right? It's not a let's just say it's not a passive business, but as a scale, it's something that's always needed, right? So what about that business, the mechanics, the metrics, or the financial benefits of that business made sense to you when you shook that hand and you said, I'm going to sign on for this? What was your thesis behind why that business worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll have to say is you have to put this into the context of where I came from. So I was in property and casualty insurance, which is a brutal business to start, because you get paid once a year, $150 for selling somebody a homeowner's insurance policy, right? But what you do get is low churn, high residual business over time. So I've always known that recurring income, subscription models, residual businesses are a major focus for me. You know, it's like I look at a roofer or something and it's like you can get big fast, but it's like I'd prefer to have a client and a continual relationship. The nature of the business model that my business partner had started on and that we are working on was very interesting to me. Instead of just doing a flat 8%, we kind of split up the two services, leasing and ongoing. And so we charge a very low monthly ongoing cost, but then a high tenant placement fee, which is a more interesting model. You kind of get some of the spikes of large income while still having the consistent. And I liked that. It's an attractive grouping there. I think the final thing about property management is it's highly competitive in the form of there's 200,000 property managers in the country, give or take, but it's a very low bar. The mass, like, I don't know, 90% of those people are legacy, traditional baby boomers still working off paper. And I thought there was a high likelihood, which has proven to be true, that my business partner and I were both young guys, could make a positive impact in the way the business functioned and be able to really differentiate ourselves in the marketplace for that reason. And that was exciting because it felt like, hey, I'm not starting a franchise and following somebody else's playbook. I can go make my own playbook and do it how I want. We can build something. And that was one of the major things. I mean, I love to build things. That's my favorite part of the whole thing.
And so then, because you're out of your ever living mind, you decide to go into San Francisco, which by nature is, a bloodbath. And the only reason I know it is because I have an ex-client who born and raised there. So I'm very familiar. My fiance used to live in Marin, so I'm familiar with the area. Was it just pure, relationships reasons why, or was there a reason behind San Francisco at its core?
Just pure greed, man. No, I'm joking. I grew up in the Bay Area. My grandparents met in San Francisco in the 40s. My family was all there at the time. So in certain ways, it was an easy jump off point for our next location. We also would prefer to be in higher rental markets. And at the time, it was one of the highest rental markets in the country in terms of price point. So it had a few things come together that made sense. It also was a little less crazy then. This was pre-COVID. If we had done this during or post-COVID, like, I don't know if I'd do it again. Like it's gotten pretty wild. But yeah, I mean, there is like something that I think every business owner should know. It's like sometimes what you're constantly weighing up is it worth the risk? And in our mind, it's like California as a whole, and the Bay Area and LA and Orange County and San Diego. I mean, these are some of the most treacherous rental markets in the world. But you compare this to a really easy place to manage property, like where I am now, Boise, it's like it's about 4 times more lucrative. You have to
Well,
make the
it's
decision which works. You know what I mean?
some guy was posting about this yesterday. He said, he started his business power washing for Walmart. And the reason he did it is because nobody would do the paperwork. So the competition at that level is, and so you're basically saying, look, if I can do it here, we can do it anywhere. And this makes sense, right? Is that kind of, I mean, it makes a lot of sense when you look at it for time for risk.
Absolutely. I literally posted that on Twitter yesterday. And I mean, one of the things is like when you start, like exactly, if you can do it here, you can do it anywhere. I literally posted those words yesterday. What I'll say is it's like starting any business. If I could turn back the clock, would I do it differently? It's like, no, because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't have a frame of reference at the time. The idea of launching a property management company in Boise or Florida or anywhere else seemed impossible. It's like, well, we have licenses in this state, and this is the best place in this state where we can do it. And I guess we're going to try it. Now I might look back differently, but that's kind of, it's a fallacy. You couldn't have done it any different way because I didn't know anything. It's like I've had to learn these lessons the hard way. I'm definitely a hand on the stove sort of person.
Well, think about it this way. I tell people all the time, right? And this is an analogy for life in general, is that you told me that you've reached out your potential and your W-2. Let's just use that as an example. I would say no. Have you exhausted how many promotions you can get? Have you learned all the skills that you can get? Right? We want to move on. And look, by the way, the words that are coming out of my mouth, I'm saying to myself, right, as we speak, living in this moment. We want the thing that's over there instead of focusing on the thing that's right here in front of us that we spent years doing that we haven't exasperated out the final thread of it, right? The joke is, especially with entrepreneurs, you spend 20 years learning something, and the moment that you become the master, you move to the next shiny object.
It's true.
Instead of cashing in on all the pain.
Yep. It's funny, man. I have my team knows this. Words you cannot say to me is I'm willing to do whatever it takes. If you say that to me, I will call you out on it because I'm one of the only people, my business partner's another, my wife's another, but I'm one of the only people I know that means it when I say that. Where it's like, if I need to jump on a plane tonight at 10 p.m.,
1,000%.
It's such a flippant kind of bullshit platitude for most people. Oh, I'll do whatever it takes. Well, until 5:01 p.m. or until it's hard.
We were supposed to hire the CEO instead of me. I called him. He had another offer on the table. I said, I'll be there tomorrow at 8 a.m. I'm going to take you to coffee in Nashville. He goes, what do you mean? I said, I'll be there at 8 a.m. I'll take you to coffee in the morning. He goes, you live in Texas. I go, I'm aware. So I flew in, took him to coffee, and flew right back out 3 hours later.
Totally. I've done the day trip flights over and over. It's like the amount of times you're flying in at midnight, you got a 7 a.m. meeting, and then you're moving on. And, it's like I'm a firm believer in this. Like, I think everybody kind of talks about like, oh, well, you have to get lucky or like whatever. And I actually believe this. If you're being honest and you're doing good work and you're willing to do whatever it takes, you can achieve anything. That's it though. Everybody thinks they're willing to do whatever it takes. But it's like, are you really willing to shovel the shit? Are you really willing to cold call that person 100 times? Are you really willing to show up? Like most people aren't. And that's okay. I mean, like I look at it as an entrepreneur, like I need employees. You know what I mean? It's like like not everybody should do this. Wow. It's high risk, it's scary, it's gnarly, but it's required.
So instead of putting CEO, that's the truth, right? And what's interesting though, and I'd be curious to hear your answer on this because I had to learn this early in my career when I started business. I had a business partner come to me. He's like, hey man, I love you. He goes, but we don't roll like you. And he goes, if you don't learn to let people be who they are and stop pushing them to your level, you're not going to have anybody around you. And so that's when I realized that 60% of somebody else or 80% is okay. I don't need them to be.
You know, it's really funny. This is something I have discussed a lot. It's one of the key lessons you need to learn as a leader is to stop thinking of everyone else as yourself. It's like it can be really, really difficult to imagine the perspective of someone else. But when you're trying to force your viewpoint, your expectations on your team, there's two major problems. Number one, as you said, it's like you're going to drive them out. Number two, you're going to drive yourself insane, right? When you're sitting here wondering, well, why didn't he do that? Like, it's like it took me a long time to really pick up that lesson after, 5-6 years of bashing my head in the wall saying like, what? This is so obvious. It's like I remember just being shocked the first time it dawned on me that not everyone wants to be a business owner. It's like, and it sounds so silly and so selfish when you say that out loud now, but I'm like, I used to think of myself as like, oh, I'm coaching my team to like go start their own thing one day. And it's like, it's so stupid. Nobody wants to, like, such a tiny fraction of people actually have that dream. And then a tiny fraction of that group actually means it, right? It's like that could be like somebody who says, I have the dream of hiking Everest. It's like, not until you get to 10,000 feet in frickin' Tibet. Well, I believe that shit. Like, it's like you're not willing to do the 2 years of prep to actually hike Everest.
Well, I mean, that's the truth. It's like, man, I tell people all the time, it freaks them out because I'm 40 right now, about to be 41. I said, man, at 50, dude, I'm gonna be ready. I'm gonna be ready to. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, at 50, I got it all planned out already. I'm gonna have learned enough in this 9 years. I have built this much. I'm gonna have the freedom. And they're like, I don't understand. You're already at 50. You know what? I said, yeah, I know the back half of my entire life. I know exactly what I'm gonna do on my terms, the way that I want with my kids. But it's gonna take. What people don't understand is like I'm not saying I was a fuck up, but I didn't have my shit together until 36. Like I was still an alcoholic. So like I needed 4 years to get my shit together and work on personal development, get healthy. Now I'm 40. And I told my fiance when I met her, I said, give me 10 years. I said, give me 10 years to be irrational about how much I'm going to build. I said, that's all I'm asking for. At 50, there'll be a little more rational with my life. I'll take a lot more vacations. Like I'll take some time, but like, I need this. Like if I don't do this, then I'm not going to feel ready for my 50 on. So like, understand that. Let me do it.
Yep.
But like I had to admit that to myself first, right?
It's so funny. So when my fourth son, when my wife found out she was pregnant, she had just started a business. I had just started my property management company, and I mean it was emotional. It was not. we were not expecting another child. We already had 3. It was enough, and I mean obviously he's a blessing now. It wouldn't change anything, but we were daunted by what was going on. And I mean, I was going to go start I just started this other business. Literally a week and a half before was when I did that 30-minute conversation, a handshake. And I told her right then, I'm like, look, the reality is that until this kid is basically out of kindergarten, I'm going to have to prioritize this business for our futures. Mm-hmm. And most people can't wrap their head around that. And it's funny too, because, and I'll point out, like, I'm hitting a bullseye on that. My son just started kindergarten. It's like, I've now got these other 2 things. The property management company's good. Like, it's right. Now we'll have more time to be able to do some other stuff. Right. But what I'll say is the amount of people who have no ability to put a plan in place long-term and execute on it, it's like, it's not sexy. Right. And I think that's the problem is like people, you could use all the metaphors, sports, anything else, but it's like, it's really, really difficult to do the same thing or the same series of things 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years in a row. And most people, life just happens to them. They're not intentional about the way that they go through this world. Like, I tell my team all the time, it's like, in 5 years, whether you like it or not, you're going to have gained experience.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you're only gaining this much because you're just doing it. It's happening to you. It's just, this is accidental experience. But imagine if over the course of those 5 years, take something really simple. You just read 10 minutes a day for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'll point out that's somewhere in the range of 150,000 minutes. I mean, it's more like 170,000 minutes of reading. Like, how many pages could you get through? How many books could you actually process in that time?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you take accidental experience here. And for 10 minutes a day, you end up off the chart on experience in the future. And it's like, it's really hard for people to think in that consistent baby step process of what execution looks like over the long arc of time.
What do they say all the time? Yeah, I got 20 years of work experience. I said, no, you got 1 year of work experience 20 times in a row. You know, and it's
that's
like,
well put.
It's like,
well put. I'm stealing that one.
No, it's the truth, right? And so the way I look at it, and this is like, we're getting into some granular, like psycho shit. I rarely share this with most people, is that my network is a baseball team. Okay. My people, you're part of that people now. Like, I have my team. I've got a starting pitcher, a shortstop. I know what they do. They all do different things. They do different things well. And if you don't want to grow with me, then as a starting shortstop, you can get replaced until I meet a good one, right? So there's my network. Well, now we're on to my personal skills. So my personal skills are out here in front of me. These are the things I'm good at. These are the things I'm weak at. Okay, how much do I need to learn on financial modeling to be able to speak coherently about it? I need to learn enough, but I don't have to be a master. Okay, so we're going to bump that up. So every day it's like you wake up and there's this whole framework out. And it's like, okay, what skills am I going to learn now? And like, I'll spend a month on leadership, and then I'll spend a month on financial modeling. And then I'm, like, people ask me all the time, my clients say, what books do you read? I said, well, I read books for you and I read books for me. What the fuck does that mean? Well, you care about goals and all that stuff. I care about value, long-term things. So those are my things, but I also have to stay up on habits and goals and things for you to coach you. So there's like, my mentor always tells me, like, the driver of the vehicle doesn't change, but the vehicle changes. So sometimes, like this morning with a client, I needed to be a Hummer with a 2x4 on the front of it and knock him in the fucking head. And then other times I need to be, a fucking top-down fucking Corvette. Like, that's the next level of thinking that people don't realize, that the skills that you're bringing really, they're for somebody else. Really, they're to teach your team, they're to do this. But one of the things that really, whacks people in the eye, and I could get a little flack for this, but I don't give a shit because I've seen the impact. If you're over 50 or 51 and you're deciding to change your life for the first time, let's say you're getting into personal development or you're getting out of the W-2, I look them dead in the face and I go, this isn't for you. And they go, what do you mean? I go, this is to show your kids that they can do anything they want. So if that's the case, then you can have no stress about it. You can have no fear. You can just let go. Because you're showing somebody else what to do. It's not about you. Because your life, I'm not saying your life is over, but you've lived a life. It's now a different part. You're a teacher, you're a healer, you're a supporter. Like, and people just, they don't understand that. You are saying, I'm going to do this for my family that allows me the freedom to do what I need when I want to do it. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to rest my laurels on the property management company. I'm still going to start these other businesses because it's what I like to do. It makes you a good father. It makes you a good husband because you do something that's for you. And that's, I think, the most important message.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, I like to build stuff. It's funny, man. For the past few weeks, this morning I woke up, just bolted up at 3:30. Couldn't go back to sleep. Got up at 5, worked out, like did my, and it's the joy of creating something is very real for me. It's like seeing, oh man, hey, we got another group of waitlist signups. Oh, dude, I got a meeting at 6 a.m. with my marketing head and one of our partners. And it's like I think that you need to find something in your life that like fills you up. And for me, it's funny. I was just talking to my business partner. I'm like, dude, this reminds me of early 2018 when we launched that business. And it's like every day, springing the step and everything. And it's like, it's not that I owe everything to the property management company. It's allowed me to feed my family and build my career and taught me so much. But I've hit a place where it's like, I'm not the best steward of this anymore. It's not because I don't have the skill set. It's just I'm not as excited. I still am excited. We're still launching new initiatives and doing new things, but it's like, you know, I need something else to have some focus on. You know, I think a lot of people kind of, my brother's a good example of this. He's in his early 40s, and he's technically at a subsidiary of Boeing called Spirit, not the airline, but they make aircraft parts. He's got a PhD in mechanical engineering, and he just does the same thing every day. And he's done it for, I don't know, 20 years now. And it's like, this is a guy who basically has kind of had to fit everything else around his life. And he's good at his job. He has won multiple awards and that sort of thing, but he gets literally zero fulfillment out of it. He won the lottery tomorrow, he's out, right? It's like, I can't live that way. If I don't have that, I'm like a idle hands, devil makes play. Like if that was my life, I would be a raging alcoholic. I would not have a family. No one would be interested in me. Like I just can't do it. I need something that it's like, holy shit, look how big this could be. Look what we can fucking do. Like, I need something that's like gives me the possibility. It's like, who knows? Maybe one of these businesses is gonna go become $100 million company. Like probably not, but at least I can like kind of convince myself, trick myself in the background a little bit every day, saying, look, we're starting the next big thing. And that revs my engine. You know what I mean?
There's a book I read a while back. I can't remember the name. He says a lot of people, they spend too long in their passion cycle, meaning that a lot of people don't sell their businesses because the passion for the business wanes and they don't replace themselves. And then by the time the business is ready to sell, there's nothing left to sell. Right.
And you're touching on a concept that I like. I think Reid Hoffman said this: seasons or tours of duty. I'm going on 7 years in this business. That's a season of my life, and I don't want to let it go. I'm not ready to sell it. I want to kind of move out, let some other people come in. I want to work on strategy, but not have it be this all-consuming moment, like constant in my day-to-day, right? You got to understand property management, you can't escape from it. I know this is true for most businesses, but 3 days ago, it's like I still see our emergency maintenance is 2 o'clock in the morning, an emergency maintenance call comes in. It is literally a 24/7 thing, and it has been for a long time. And I've had maintenance managers sitting there, but I still have to make sure, because what if they don't see it? And what if it's a house on fire? It's like there's no escape in this business. No escape.
And I think you were super smart to know that you're starting to pull yourself out from it. And the only two things that find a place, no matter if you have a place for them, are time and money. And so by you creating the new businesses, when that time is sucked back in and you have that gap and you bring that life back, like you've already filled it with your next great adventure. The mountain is already there. And so instead of taking that time, which the gap, the dip, which you're still taking a little time, I think it's super smart on your part to keep the momentum going, because they always say, it's really hard to turn a big ship, but if you keep it moving in the right direction, right? That's why I walk every day. It's not that I feel like it every day. It's just I don't want to have a 2-3 day span where I don't, because it's going to be really hard to get a kick back up
again. Jerry Seinfeld calls that "don't break the chain." It's like, just don't break the chain. And it's like, I totally agree. And also that rule of 2, it's like never miss more than 1 day. You can always miss 1 day, but you can never miss 2 in a row. It's like building those base habits is so paramount.
So if people want to follow you, they want to reach out to you, they want to chat with you, how would they do that?
I would say Twitter is the main thing. My handle is Parker Cox. So it's Parker Cox, but switch the first two letters. That's really there. The new businesses are called Lead Flow Depot, which is a digital marketing agency. Pavago, which is our international recruiting focused on Pakistan. And then the property management company is called Tenant Planet. But for direct access to me, my DMs are open, and follow me on Twitter. I like to share about my thoughts and journey. So
Got it. Guys, if you got some information from this episode, send it to a friend, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.